Hello, weather aficionados, weather wanderers, or weather wannabes. Welcome to another edition of the Weather Show. I'm Chief Meteorologist Don Schwedeker. Everybody calls me Big Weather, and we are talking all kinds of weather over the next 15 to 20 minutes. And if you're new to the program, thanks for spending part of your time with us. Let's do the three big things we're going to talk about tonight. After what's just been brutal heat, we finally got some rain headed in, and we'll talk about when that rain arrives coming up in just a minute. We're going to do old school weather. If you haven't seen it before, we get into the fronts, the highs, the low pressure, what weather used to look like on certain channels in the 1990s. We're going to do that at our second bit there. And then our viewer mail today is a great one. What's up with the humidity? Why does it get humid? Why does it stay humid? And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about what the humidity means to you on the human body, because the more humidity, the harder it is, especially on hot days like today. But we always start with the forecast. And so if you're new to this, we're going to go through the forecast first. If you just want to see what the weather is tonight into tomorrow, here it is. But I invite you to stay tuned because we got a lot of to talk about tonight, including the tropics a little bit later on. Meteorologist Robert Johnson's got a specialist from AccuWeather talking about the Atlantic really starting to heat up. So that's coming up in a bit as well. Live look at First Alert Doppler at 7 o'clock tonight. We do see a couple of showers working through Chatham County out toward Pittsboro and also up into Granville County, Durham County line. That's it, though. We're relatively rain-free tonight with the heat and humidity. Live look on our Pendo Skycam, partly cloudy skies. 93 degrees right now. Still feels like 104 out there, just outside our door here in downtown Raleigh. So hot in downtown Raleigh that our AC system here in the TV studio can't quite keep up with it. So if I have to dab myself a little later, I know I'm getting shiny. It's because it is warm in here. Let's talk about the warm air that's been with us. The satellite radar showing a few showers firing. Not much in the way of rainfall here right now. The remnants of Beryl causing all kinds of problems in upstate New York. We'll take a better look at some of the severe weather being caused by that in just a bit. And some showers out into the Midwest. We will see an area of low pressure developing that's going to cause some problems for us on Friday. This is new to our weather center. Well, it's actually been up for 3 or 4 weeks now. If you go to abc11.com/weather and you have challenges with color vision deficiency. In the olden days, they called it color blindness. It's hard to see the difference between red and green. We now have a radar built specifically for you. That's at abc11.com/weather. It is showing a few showers that fired around here. Not much, but there's that shower over Chatham County. It might be a little easier to pick out if you've got problems with the reds and greens. Here's your First Alert Predictor forecast model as we go through the overnight. It does try and fire a few more showers this evening. It kills them off in the overnight hours. Then tomorrow morning, some showers start to fire and drift west. By this time on Friday, we will see heavier rain moving in, and that heavy rain has the potential to cause some flooding. Tonight will be just 1 or 2 degrees cooler than last night. Normal for this time of year is 70. We will see those temperatures tonight in the mid-70s from Clinton to Fayetteville, 74 Raleigh, 72 in Durham, and 60s tonight in Roxborough. Then tomorrow for that morning commute, you'll wake up to temperatures in the 70s. By 9 o'clock, it's almost 80 degrees. We're still dealing with the humidity, so it will feel like almost 90 by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We don't see the relief from the rain until tomorrow night. Forecast for tomorrow afternoon, 93 degrees with a few more clouds, not quite as hot as it was today. We do not have a heat advisory yet from the National Weather Service for tomorrow. We'll keep an eye should they issue one. We'll have that on abc11.com, all of the ABC11 platforms, and I'll also put it on my Twitter account tonight, or X now, x.com. I'll put it on that tonight. Hot and humid tomorrow with a storm risk and 93 degrees. A look at our temperatures across the region tomorrow, and I threw the little lightning bolt in here. Best chance for any thunderstorm activity during the day will be east of I-95. It's also where the clouds will be thicker, so it'll be a little cooler in Clayton, 88. Siler City, 3 degrees warmer, 91, 92 in Cary. Notice Pinehurst to Rayford, you're in the 90s tomorrow. Clinton to Goldsboro, you're in the 80s. That's because the cloud cover will actually hold your temperature down just a little bit. You have a better chance at seeing some showers earlier in the day to help hold that temperature down. Tarboro, Wilson in the 80s. You'll be up near 90 tomorrow, one of those rare days where Roxborough could be warmer than Wilson. Friday, as all that rain moves through, we have the potential for heavy rainfall. Category 2 risk for the Triangle and points east. If we see that heavy rainfall work through, boy, that really could cause some localized street flooding. And we're seeing some of the models say 2 to 4 inches of rainfall is possible on Friday. This is one of the models. This is our in-house model, and it puts upwards of 4 inches possible at RDU and Roxborough. Now, what do we say? A model is not a forecast. It's just a tool. If you build a house, you need a hammer, you need a screwdriver, you need lots of tools. If we build a forecast, we need lots of tools. But this is one of the tools that gives us an idea of rainfall possibilities, and anywhere from 2 to 4 inches possible as we go through the day on Friday. A look at your 7-day forecast, powered by AccuWeather 93. That storm risk mainly east tomorrow. Here's the heavy rain on Friday, 83. At least the rain and the clouds will hold our temperatures down and give us a little relief from this brutal heat. It starts to build back in for the weekend. Saturday, 91, Sunday, 96. Monday, 98, and I've got 99 in there on Tuesday, which feels like up around 107. That could be even higher. The models are trending warmer. We may have to push that back up above 100 as we get closer to Tuesday of next week. Time for one of my favorite segments. Just because I like the music. Wow. Old school weather, and we are happy to show you the old school weather forecast like they used to do weather. We like to do it still today. If we look at the big surface map, I want to show you this. This is crazy. It's got all kinds of highs and lows. Now, this is just computer generated, and it looks like a big mess. So we're going to zoom into some areas and break it down a little bit more for you. And we're going to go into the Northeast first because these are the remnants of Beryl. And as this area of low pressure is tracking up to the north, we've got an occluded front. That's what the purple is. Stationary fronts, cold fronts are the blue. Red is the warm front. All of that coming together has actually triggered lots of tornado warnings. At one point, we had 6 different tornado warnings through New York showing up on our computer in upstate New York. Around here, we've just got a frontal boundary that's approaching. This is an area of developing low pressure. This is what we're going to watch. It could become tropical. We'll talk about that later. But as this low touches the ocean and starts to drop all the moisture off the ocean, that's what's going to give us the potential for that heavy rainfall on Friday. We go into the upper plains. They've got high pressure, big blue H's all over the place. There's a bit of a trough swinging through Iowa and Missouri, triggering a few showers down near Lamoni and those areas in northern Missouri and southern Iowa. And then as you head out into the Four Corners region, they've got an area of low pressure, a lot of upper level disturbances kind of working through. You can see those troughs as those swing through, they can trigger showers. And that is putting down some spotty showers from Albuquerque on up into Denver and even out towards Salt Lake in the mountains, the Wasatch. They're seeing some showers in parts of Utah. Let's talk about what we're seeing as far as heat warnings. And the United States has a lot of heat on the West Coast and the East Coast today. Excessive heat warnings for places like the Mojave Desert where it's obviously hot, but most of the state of Nevada and lots of California under excessive heat warnings tonight. Orange is heat advisories, and it's just a nasty day out west. Now, if we slide east from Boston all the way down to our neck of the woods, we continue to see those heat advisories and a heat warning in effect up around New York City into New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania and also around the nation's capital. They're under excessive heat warning as well. Just brutal temperatures. If we look at what's happening as far as the remnants of Beryl, there is still an active tornado warning up in central New York. It looks like that's Broome and Shenango counties with an active tornado warning. And there's another one up here in New Hampshire. And we're seeing a tornado warning. Lots of severe weather along that line, lots of flooding, lots of severe thunderstorm activity. Those are the little yellow boxes. Those are severe thunderstorms. Here is that trough kind of swinging through northern Missouri, Kirksville on down to Kansas City, actually north of Kansas City. And in the very southwest corner of Iowa, Fremont, they've got a severe thunderstorm warning. South of Omaha, we're just starting to see those fire, but those are going to push south and could be problematic for Kansas City. Out in the Four Corners, one severe thunderstorm warning showing up south of Albuquerque. Looks like it's in the mountains of near New Mexico, out near Ruidoso. Lincoln County, you're starting to get down toward Roswell in those areas, and they do have a severe thunderstorm warning. Look at the Pacific Northwest, one of those rare days where they don't see any rainfall out there in the Pacific Northwest. We're looking at the latest model. It's hot. Hold on just a second. I got to step off here and get a towel because I'm starting to sweat down onto my. I feel like James Brown on the good foot. Huh. Yeah, it's just. Whoop. I'll just keep that tuck that in my back pocket and use it as I need it. This is Thursday, and you'll see, here's the heavy rainfall that works in. This is the area of low pressure that works in. So we're going to watch that as we go into next week as well, the potential to see rain. Before that rain gets here next Thursday, though, it's going to get hot around here again, and we'll see those triple-digit feels-like temperatures. All right, it is time for some viewer mail. We, of course, have viewer mail music, too. Thank you, Anna, our wonderful director behind the scenes, giving us the music. Today's viewer mail is a first for the weather show. The viewer mail coming to us out of Colorado, our first viewer mail, not from North Carolina, but we have, this is on the web. Anybody can watch, and we do get questions, and this one comes to us from Rumor. Rumor is from Denver, Colorado, and writes, why are some places more humid than others? And we've been dealing with a lot of humidity over the past couple of days, so let's talk about the humidity and why it happens. And when we're talking about humidity, the first thing we look to is the ocean. Ocean temperatures make a huge difference. Now, the currents in the ocean on the west coast come from up near Alaska and push cold air south and cold water south. And cold water doesn't have as much moisture in the air above it, so it's actually drier and lower humidity. And as the winds flow onshore across that cooler, drier water, it keeps the humidity relatively low. And that's why the West Coast always has those temperatures in the 70s. As San Francisco, a lot of times this time of year, you may watch a baseball game for the Giants and everybody's in jackets. And that's because the water flows out of Canada down to the south. The air flows across that cool water, keeps it dry and keeps the humidity low, and it keeps the temperatures cooler along the West Coast. In our neck of the woods, it's totally different. The rotation around the Atlantic Ocean is actually pulling up warm water from the Caribbean and from the equator. And so our water off the east coast of North Carolina is a lot warmer. And when you see those onshore winds, warmer water has warmer air above it, it has more moisture in it, it has more humidity in it. So as those winds come onshore, they push that humidity into our region and they make for more humidity. That's one of the ways we get more humidity on the East Coast, is that warm water off our coast. Another way has to do with high pressure and low pressure systems as they work through the U.S. So let's take a low pressure system first. Now, this isn't today's map. It's just a map of an area of low pressure. And we've got very warm water in the Caribbean, 80+ degree temperatures. So down in the Gulf of Mexico, that warm, humid air is sitting above warm water. And when you get an area of low pressure, the rotation is counterclockwise around it. So it will grab hold of this humidity and it pulls it up into us. That's another way we get humidity in our area, is these areas of low pressure really drawing up that moisture. As over the next couple of days, we're going to watch a low down here. It's going to draw that moisture up. Not only is it going to be humid, it's going to be wet around here. So low pressure system can help draw up. On the back side of it, it's pulling down that cooler air, so that can actually lower the humidity on the backside of an area of low pressure. Same thing with high pressure. When we get some of Canada's finest air, as I like to call it, and high pressure drops out of Canada, it's usually pulling, there's no ocean up here. It's all land, so there's not a lot of moisture in the air. It's dry, okay? And it has clockwise rotation around it, so it will grab hold of that dry air and pull it down into us. And that's when my wife and her friend call it a vacation from summer. My neighbor said that, a vacation from summer, when we had temperatures in the 80s and low humidity just for a couple of days right before the 4th. That was high pressure pulling down that drier air and keeping the humidity at bay. So it has to do with the oceans, and it has to do where the air is moving in from. And then finally, the mountains can make a difference. Rumor, since you're from Colorado, you see this a lot. We see it occasionally here in North Carolina. When wind flows down the mountains and air flows down the mountains, it does two things. It warms and it dries. In Colorado, when you get these really warm winds flowing down the mountain, it's called a Chinook or a snow eater. And in the wintertime, they can see temperatures go up 30 or 40 degrees. As the air sinks, it warms and it dries out, and it will evaporate all the snow. Well, we see that in North Carolina too. Our mountains are a little further west, they're not as high, but that sinking air will warm up as it moves off to the east. It will dry out, and it means lower humidity. Incidentally, if you're on the side of the mountains where the wind always comes down and it dries out and warms up, some of those areas actually turn into deserts. And we see that in Washington State and in California. the wind goes up the mountains, it loses all its moisture, it sinks, it warms, it dries out, and you'll actually see desert areas form on the other side of the mountains. So where that air is coming from makes a difference. Why do we care about humidity though? Here's why. Here's our little human body, normal temperature. You take your temperature when you're sick, you hope it's 98.6, right? Our bodies like to stay near 98.6, but when our body temperature starts to rise and goes up, we start to sweat, and sweat is released from our skin. So here's a little person over here. Here's their skin. They've got sweat being released, okay? As the air moves across the skin, it will take the moisture with it. It evaporates the water. It'll leave behind some of the minerals. That's why if you have a hat, a dark hat, and you sweat through it and eventually it dries out, it's got white. It can be some of the salt or minerals left. The water, though, from the sweat evaporates. That helps to lower your body's temperature. It's evaporative cooling is what we call it. And the problem is, on really muggy or hot, sticky days like we've been seeing out there, the sweat comes off. There's so much moisture in the air, it can't evaporate into the air, and our bodies can't cool down. And that's why we really have to watch for heat safety when we're talking about hot, humid days. Rumor, thanks for the question. Hopefully that answered it for you. Let's talk tropics real quick. We're not seeing any tropical systems. We're seeing the remnants of Beryl up here causing the nasty thunderstorms up in New York. And then we've got an area of low pressure that's going to be off our coast. It's just a 10% chance of becoming something. So we don't anticipate it turning into a tropical storm. But we're early in the tropical season. So for more on what's headed our way, let's go to meteorologist Robert Johnson.
Today on the Weather Show, we have the pleasure of getting to talk to Alex De Silva. He is AccuWeather's lead hurricane forecaster. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So we know that really warm water and a great depth of really warm water can help to rapidly intensify hurricanes if they do develop. So what are the sea surface temperatures off the East Coast and elsewhere in the Atlantic Basin?
Yeah, these sea surface temperatures have really played a role so far in the Atlantic hurricane season. I think this is a primary driver why we saw Beryl intensify so quickly east of the islands, and then once it got into the Eastern Caribbean, becoming the earliest Category 5 hurricane that we've ever seen on record in the Atlantic. The main development region, stretching from the Western Caribbean all the way to off the coast of Africa, is the warmest it's ever been on record for this time of year. Temperatures there are more comparable to where they should be at the end of August or even the beginning of September. So extremely impressive warmth in that main development region of the tropics. As for the Gulf of Mexico, and off the southeast coast, temperatures are also running above average in those locations as well.
So we know that really warm water, and as mentioned, a great depth of really warm water can help to rapidly intensify storms if they do develop. But how about some limiting factors such as Saharan dust? Could that prohibit tropical development? Could that overcome the really warm water?
Yeah, right now we're in the month of July, and so it's common that we see a lot of Saharan dust coming off of the continent of Africa. June and July, typically, we usually don't see a whole lot of development east of the Lesser Antilles. Beryl was kind of an exception rather than the rule. Usually we look much closer to home, Gulf of Mexico, Western Caribbean, and off the southeast coast here for development early in the season. I think as we go over the next couple of weeks, the Saharan dust is really going to be in play across much of the Atlantic. We're seeing a lot of it move off the continent of Africa as we speak. So I think for about probably the next 10 days to maybe about 2 weeks, I don't really see a whole lot of development in the Atlantic Basin because of a lot of this dry air coming east or coming west, as well as a lot of wind shear across the basin.
Something to watch for in the weeks and certainly in the months ahead. And when do you expect the window for tropical threats to increase along the Carolina coast?
I think by the end of July, we should start to see things pick up a little bit more in the Atlantic. I think some of the dry air coming off of Africa, that Saharan dust we talked about, I think will start to wane a little bit, and the wind shear should begin to relax, especially as we move into the beginning of August. So I think as we get through probably the middle to late portions of August and into September, commonly what is known to most people is the peak of the hurricane season. I think that's when your greatest threat is going to be in the Carolinas.
People often say it's not a bad hurricane season until something hits us. Any lessons that we can learn from the folks down there in Texas who had to deal with Beryl as it made landfall just south of Houston?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be aware how quickly things can change in the last few hours before landfall. We actually got very lucky with Beryl. The thing was organizing very, very quickly prior to landfall. I think, honestly, if it had another 6 to 12 hours over the water, this thing could have easily been a Category 3 hurricane. It was really starting to develop. And even when it moved over Houston, we still got winds of over 80 miles per hour in the northern eye wall of the hurricane. So again, we want people to not become complacent and to watch the forecast very carefully because, like you mentioned earlier, those really warm ocean temperatures, and not only the ocean surface temperatures, but the depth of the ocean can really play a role in rapid intensification. Think back to Hurricane Ian a couple of years ago that moved into western Florida. That's kind of the worst case scenario where you have a storm really blow up in the last few hours before landfall, exploding into a major hurricane. That is absolutely going to be a risk this hurricane season.
One final question for you, and it's about those really warm sea surface temperatures. If we're already well above average now in the month of July, what can we expect as we get into the heart of hurricane season in September and in October?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're only going to be going up from here. 2023 was the warmest Atlantic basin sea surface temperatures that we've ever seen on record if you take an average of the entirety of the Atlantic basin. Right now, we're very close to that mark of 2023. A few weeks ago, we were actually outpacing it. We've seen a little bit of cooling due to the recent tropical systems, Alberto and Beryl, which have actually cooled the temperatures a little bit. However, I think as we get into the heart of the season, those temperatures are just going to keep going up, adding more fuel to potential hurricanes that could be getting close to the United States.
Alex De Silva, AccuWeather's lead hurricane forecaster. Alex, thank you.
All right, guys, thank you for that update. And just a little note, there's a group of forecasters who do hurricane forecasting at Colorado State University led by Dr. Philip Klotzbach, and they have increased the number of hurricanes they expect this season. So we will be keeping a close eye on it. Should anything ever threaten, we'll have it for you first from our weather team. All right, every week on the Weather Show, we'd like to show you the pick of the week, and this one coming to us from Margaret Callahan down in Fayetteville. Sent us this beautiful cotton candy cloud there. That is just gorgeous. Love it when those high clouds are there at sunset. If you have a picture, we would love to see it. Super easy. Just go to abc11.com/share. That's the easiest way to send us the pick, and you might have the next pick of the week on the Weather Show. We always end with a cup of coffee as you head out in the morning. Still in that iced coffee season, especially for my younger viewers. I still like it hot and dark, but we will see temperatures in the 70s, and then by 10 o'clock, we jump to 80 degrees tomorrow morning for your coffee forecast. Thanks so much for spending part of your week with us. We will have live updates throughout the night on the heat as it continues, and watch out for those flooding possibilities on Friday. We'll be watching it too. As we wrap up, we'll put the radar up here for you. Still seeing a couple showers out in Chatham County, Lee County, but nothing severe. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Weather Show.